Hi, curious people. Welcome to Curious People Wanted, a program by the Barnum Museum in Bridgeport, Connecticut. Thanks for joining us today. My name is Adrienne St. Pierre, and I'm the curator here at the Barnum Museum. Now, I have to say that our iconic artifact is P.T. Barnum's top hat. So I certainly want to be able to share the story of this hat with you today. People just automatically think of P.T. Barnum in a top hat, and it's certainly true that in the 1800s, a gentleman always was seen in public wearing a top hat. This one's pretty special because it dates to Barnum's very early years. It really dates to about 1830. He was born in 1810. So let me tell you a little bit about the hat. A lot of people say, oh, a beaver top hat. Well, it's true that beaver fur was used to make top hats, but in this case, Barnum's top hat was made of felted rabbit fur. Beaver had become rather scarce by the 1800s, and so, cheaper types of fur were used in hat making. He lived in Bethel, Connecticut, and Bethel and the neighboring city of Danbury were very much involved in the hatter's trade. So, he grew up around top hats. That said, a man's top hat was kind of an investment. If you're just farming or doing ordinary work, you probably aren't going to spend your precious money on buying a top hat. But when P.T. Barnum decided to become a newspaper man in 1831, that meant traveling to the capital city of Hartford, Connecticut to gather the latest news. And he certainly needed to make a good impression then. So a top hat was in order. Now, this one has some interesting clues as to its date and origin. First of all, I'm going to hold this up a bit. You can see that brim is very flat. It's thin and flat. Often in the later 19th century, a top hat has a curled brim around the sides. This is just completely flat, right? And what's even more interesting is that up inside, and we can actually see that, there is a label tucked up there, adhered to the crown, which tells us the hat maker's name and address. Turned out to be Ezra S. Hamilton of Hartford, Connecticut, with an address. So I went to the old city directories for Hartford, Connecticut to see if I could pinpoint a date range when Ezra Hamilton was at that particular address. And it so happened he moved around enough that I could at least pinpoint it to after 1828 and before about 1835. Now, Barnum was operating or publishing his newspaper between 1831 and 1834. I guess he bought the hat while he was up there in Hartford. It strikes me as funny that he didn't buy it in Danbury because he was so close to Danbury, but so be it. The color. Now, it's sort of a neutral taupe color, and, it seems unusual. You'd think of most top hats being black. This was a fashion in the 1830s, which is another clue as to its date, both the very flat rim and the height of the crown, but also this sort of neutral color was very fashionable in the 1830s. It's a wonderful piece. We had it conserved by the Textile Conservation Workshop in South Salem, New York, a few years ago. Conservation basically stabilizes a piece. It doesn't try to make it look brand new. So on this particular hat, there was a very narrow silk hat band that ran around the base of the crown there, and that's been encased in a sheer netting to make sure that no fragments fall off. It was also gently cleaned to remove a kind of sootiness that was on it. We are thrilled to have this top hat, and I'm curious as to why Barnum saved it, perhaps because it was his very first top hat. So I'll put that aside for a second, and then I want to show you another piece that goes with it. This is a leather carrying case for a top hat. I mentioned that a top hat was a bit of an investment, and for a gentleman who might be traveling in a crowded coach or a little bit later on a train, he might want to remove his hat but make sure that it didn't get scrunched and damaged. So a leather carrying case specifically made to fit a top hat was in order. This is a great piece. I want to show you the inside because you see this beautiful blue wallpaper, right? This is also helps to date it from that time period around the 1830s. And that actually was a cylindrical box. And I'm just going to turn this upside down for a second here and show you it had a lid, like a round lid here. Presumably a gentleman could put his gloves, or maybe if he had a silk scarf he wanted to put away with it, so that would fit inside. And then here is the interior of the carrying case, which you can see is wonderfully padded out and lined with fabric. So that's that's a wonderful complete set, considering that this dates to Barnum's life when he was a young man starting out, trying to make an impression on people, a good impression. I think it's a pretty special top hat, not just any old top hat for us to have. So I'm thrilled to share the story of P.T. Barnum's top hat with you. I hope you will join us for future episodes of Curious People Wanted. Delighted to have you with us. See you soon. Bye-bye.